This episode is brought to you by Modal Electronics, who enable you to play and perform powerful sound with their incredible synthesizers. You can enjoy vibrant wavetable patches with the Argon 8 series, or you can produce with state-of-the-art analog-style synth textures with the Cobalt 8 series. To check out Modal Electronics' incredible array of synthesizers, go to modalelectronics.com. Modal Electronics. Dare to sound different.
Well, I know that I heard the first time I spent money on a 45 record was You Can Do Magic by America. I saved up all my allowance and bought my first 45.
I mean, that is a great record. I love America. And so in terms of music, did you ever figure that you might want to go into music rather than what you've ended up doing? Was there ever that consideration?
One, I wish I had any musical talent, because I would love to be a rock star. But what I did, I was interested in working at a record company. I had some friends in the music industry, and I was always really interested in sort of, the behind the scenes and scouting bands and merchandising and all that sort of thing. So there was a time where I was kind of hoping to get an internship or something at a record company, but things went the other way.
Well, things went pretty well the other way, for sure. But I was just interested in that. And so today, like, what do you listen to?
I mean, I listen to a lot of, like yesterday I was listening to jazz and I was listening to Tom Waits, but I'm also listening to Mitski and Angel Olsen and Arcade Fire and then, listening to Phoebe Bridgers and Margaret Glaspie and, so some more rocky, some more folky, some more jazzy. And I love everything. And not everything. I don't love everything. I'm picky.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you listen to some very good stuff, that's for sure. But so before the pandemic and, well, now that things are opening up, are you a big gig goer?
Oh, yes, definitely. My whole life. And that has been one of the hardest things, I have to say, through all of this, is not seeing live music. That's a big part of my life.
Yeah, it has been one of the most sorely missed things. But what's the pandemic been like in general in terms of your own work filming? Did you have to put things on pause? How difficult has it been to get through for the acting industry?
Yeah, it was. Well, at the end of season 3 of Good Girls, we knew this was happening and we'd heard that certain people were closing down for maybe a month. And I thought, oh, we're going to go home for a couple of weeks. This is going to be wild. I mean, I just had no knowledge of the scope of, really was in a bubble. And so they came and announced in the middle of our 12th episode, we were supposed to do 14 or 15, and said, we're all going home for the season. And I was, completely taken off guard. And I thought, okay, let's go home and see what, cut to a year and a half later. I really did not leave my house, I think, for 3 or 4 months, not even the block. And then, had to go back to work in October. So it was scary. And I knew that they were doing everything they could as far as protocol and testing and all the safety measures that you can have, but we'd still be getting those calls every day, like so-and-so, one of the crew, came down with it. So everyone was just worried about each other. And it definitely made the season very difficult. We couldn't have everyone on set that we needed to have on set. And it was sort of just, let's get through this. Let's do the best we can. But this is not our normal circumstances as far as being creative and having all the sort of tools and people and experts that you need there every day,
Yeah, I can imagine it must have made logistics just a complete nightmare. And then if one person tests positive, then the whole thing is, the schedule's affected or whatever. But in terms of those 3 or 4 months, because you're obviously somebody who's normally incredibly busy and working very hard. So what was it like spending 3 or 4 months at home? Probably an infuriating question that you've been asked many times, but it is
I haven't. I've been in a bubble. I haven't been out there doing interviews or anything. I've been working or sitting on my couch. The first couple months I embraced it. it was obviously scary watching the news and hearing everything. And I was just trying to contribute in my way of just staying away and being respectful and being cautious. And I didn't realize how badly I needed that 3 or 4 months to just sit on my couch. I had been going and working nonstop. And I was really burning the candle at both ends. And I was like, oh, I can just sit here and watch TV and do nothing and sleep all day. Like, I really lapped it up for a minute. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. Now it's time to move on. I'm sure everyone felt the same way.
Yeah. It's like after a couple of months of Netflix and etc.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets a bit dry after a while. But so you've obviously done so many amazing things in your career, been in so many incredible shows, films, you name it. How did your career actually start? Because there are a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are aspiring musicians, aspiring actors, and it's always really helpful to just hear from people who've achieved a lot how they managed to achieve their success.
I thank you, by the way. I sort of went about it very gradually and without a grand plan or like a real scheme. I was in high school and I had been doing community theater since I was a kid, and I knew, and I was a dancer, I was a ballet dancer, and I performance was in me, and it was something that I always wanted to do, and I felt passionate about it, but I didn't really know that it was something I could do as a career. I always thought it would be a hobby. And around the age of 18, I got an opportunity to move to New York and model. Some local photographer in Virginia and a local agency in Virginia took pictures of me, and I got representation. And I was doing local work like bridal magazines and stuff like that. And I got enough pictures that I thought, well, why don't I drive up to New York City and see if anyone would be interested, which I think was pretty brave. It was very scary. And I didn't know anyone in New York. And so I got an agency, and I just moved my butt up there, and I started working, and I took it very seriously as a business, and did a lot of traveling, lived in London for a while, and in Italy and Japan, and sort of slowly found myself out in Los Angeles. My mom wanted to move to LA, and my brother had just moved to LA. And my modeling work was kind of slowing down in London. I thought, I gotta do something. So that's when I was like, well, maybe I'll work at a record company. Maybe I could go work in the music industry. And then all of a sudden my acting career sort of took off via doing commercials. I started doing a lot of like national commercials for like hamburgers, and what else did I do? I don't know. I did music videos, and I did, just Dr. Pepper, just stuff like that. And I found myself sort of like learning the sort of basics of on-camera work as an actress. And then finally got up the nerve to audition for an agent.
Well, that is so, because it's easy to overlook for people who might have seen you in, XYZ TV show, film, that it by the sounds of things, you didn't have a kind of plan when you were much younger, like, I am going to be an incredibly successful actor, I'm going to star in everything. And, it sounds like you kind of just find your way into it quite gradually and not deliberately, and through another career. You spent 10 years modeling. So were you kind of, by the sounds of things, work had slowed down? Did you want to kind of continue just doing modeling forever?
No, I always felt like modeling was this weird and incredible opportunity that plopped in my lap, and I'd be stupid to not act on it. But if someone is crazy enough to want to like pay me to take my picture, like, and do it in Italy, count me in. So that was never a plan. That was just sort of, to me, like, I'm going to act probably as a hobby, maybe, as a pastime. And and that'll be fun and lovely. And I'll probably have to get a day job, and that'll be my passion in the evening. And so when the modeling thing came along, I thought, well, I'll ride this as long as it takes me. And then I was working in London for a while, and the jobs were getting less and less. I think I had like 5 pounds in my pocket, and called my mom, was like, I got to do something. Something's like, I've got something. And she said, why don't you move to LA? I'm thinking about moving there. And I said, don't you need a car to live there? Like, I don't know how to like drive a car really, or like, I've been living in Manhattan and London. And she said, you can have my old Buick. And so I came out and continued. I got a modeling agency just to make sure I could pay my rent. And then it started leading to, to these commercials. And that led to me meeting a manager who said he wanted to represent me. That led to me auditioning for an agent and me getting my first TV show.
So when you were doing commercials and things, at that stage, were you kind of thinking, you weren't of the mindset, oh, I want to be in a TV show? You were just thinking, this is pretty good. This is actually,
I thought that was like the best modeling gig I could get.
Yeah.
Paid well, and I was learning something new. And so I didn't consider those acting jobs. I always considered them modeling jobs.
And when did you kind of make the change in the sense of thinking of yourself as an actor, like formally? Because loads of people probably go to like, I don't know, conservatoires or like fancy colleges to try and act, and like never make it in many of the things. I mean, I should say at this point that I do think Mad Men is, up there as in terms of all pop culture things, film, TV, music, but loads of other things. I don't know where it would rank. I don't know where it would rank it among the things that you've done for you, and I'll ask that later. But yeah, when did you decide, or when did you think of yourself rather as an actor?
I think it was a sort of a series of fortunate events. As I was modeling and I was doing these commercials and music videos and things like that. And my brother is in post-production graphic design, and he was working next door to a manager who had this tiny little office and only managed, I think, 10 to 15 people. Coincidentally and oddly enough, one of them being John Hamm, way before I ever met him, and Paul Rudd, and myself, and a handful of other people. And so my brother introduced me to him. He said, my sister's an actress. She was in Agnes of God in high school. She was really good. And he was like, yeah, everyone's sister was in Agnes of God. But as a favor to my brother, he said, well, let me see her commercials. Why don't you have her come over here and she can show me what she's done. And so I went over there, like, I don't know what a manager is, but here's my tape. And he put it in. He said, I think I'd like to represent you. And I said, okay, I don't know what that means. What is and I didn't want to just get a manager or an agent because I was a model. I wanted to be really, I wanted to be good, and I wanted to get the job because I earned it. And so he helped hook me up with some local acting teachers that I didn't really do long-term work with, but sort of like maybe a scene study class with 10 people here, or maybe some one-on work here. And I did that for about 1.5 years before I felt confident enough to call him. And he just sort of stayed on the sidelines and would check in every few months and go, hey, interested in auditioning? And I'm like, not yet. I'm not ready. So after about 1.5 years, I called him and I said, I can do this. I'm ready. And so I went and auditioned for agents and got an agent. And then within 6 months of that agent, I got my first TV series and moved to Canada, and I went from there.
Oh, and in terms of like, because when someone is a musician and tries to play, in a band, and say they haven't learned, say your average person who hasn't learned piano tries to like play piano with a band, like they obviously wouldn't be able to. I'm wondering, say you turn up and it's an acting gig and you haven't had any type of training, or, would anyone notice? Because it's like less immediately apparent, but you're talking about getting an acting coaching. So it's like, would people notice if someone was completely fresh to something? Can you tell when you're on set, okay, they're really good, or they're a bit shaky, or is it very obvious?
It's art to a certain extent in that everyone has their preferences and what they're going to respond to. I think you can see on set maybe lack of work or, but you got a team of people to help make you look better. You got editors and directors and all sorts of people who are going to help with inexperience. And I do remember my very first series. It was called Beggars and Choosers, and it was about the TV industry. And I had been in commercials and stuff, but I didn't know the terminology. I didn't know exactly how to hit a mark or where to look, and I just turned to the camera operator. I think at the suggestion of a photographer friend of mine, and just said, "I'm Christina. I'm not going to pretend to know what you're saying, because I don't want to mess you up and I don't want to mess me up. I'm just going to be brutally honest. I don't know anything. So if you don't mind being my buddy, and like when you say do a banana to here, explaining to me what that means as a move, or this, that, and the other, that way you won't get frustrated and I won't let you down. And if you could just teach me." And he taught me and was very, very patient. And I was super grateful to him, because it was sort of like a little bit going to acting school. Because acting isn't just emoting; it is incredibly technical.
Yeah.
And if you get caught up on the technical, then you're not free to be emotional. So I was always very, very grateful to him. So yeah, you can see someone's inexperience, but then you've got bands who pick up
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a very generalized
Watch
thing.
the Go-Go's documentary. A girl picks up, does a bunch of coke and learns the whole album in 24 hours, and she's amazing. So,
yeah, and also lack of training can often be a really, really good thing in creative arts. But it's just interesting the extent to which someone who's a novice would like stand out, or to what extent it would even matter if their performance on an emotional level is really convincing. Yeah, I would have thought it was your answer, that it is incredibly technical and that you get more experience as you go along. But so before you got cast in Mad Men, you did Beggars and Choosers, and then the next thing after that was Kevin Hill. Is that right?
Probably the next series yeah.
And
No, that's not true. I did Beggars and Choosers. Then I did a pilot called The Big Time, which only aired as a TV film, but it ended up getting me a production deal with a wonderful producer named John Wells, who's done like The West Wing and ER and stuff like that. So he gave me a production deal with this. You can only sort of describe it as like one of those old Hollywood movie deals where they're like, "Oh, we've got Barbara Stanwyck." It's like, so you basically are being held to only work with that person. You're not allowed to go work anywhere else, which doesn't happen a lot anymore, and was a real gift. So I did a little bit of ER. I did another show of his, and then he wrote a show called The Court that had Sally Field and Diane Carroll and all Pat Hingle, all these wonderful people, and it only lasted 6 episodes. So he kept trying. And then finally, after 3 years of working with him, we moved on, and that's when I went and did Kevin Hill. I'm trying to think is there any other series I'm missing before that? And then I think after Kevin Hill, it was Mad Men.
And in terms of, but by the time you were on Kevin Hill, were you already feeling like you were on a roll and that you were, pretty established, or to what extent did things change after Mad Men?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. My dad, when I was on Kevin Hill, my dad would go, "Well, you're almost there," and I'd be like, "Where? I'm a working actor. Like, what more could you possibly ask for?" Like, I think only like 3% of SAG members have a steady gig. So you get a TV show and you've made it. Like, you're making a living at what you love. That's it. And I was thrilled, and I still love that show and had the most amazing experience on it and made great friends. And I had sort of gone from series to series like that, where I was working, I wouldn't be recognizable. I auditioning in between, doing little films in between, and working consistently. So I was absolutely thrilled. And the kind of thing, the thing that happened on Mad Men, just it almost never happens. But to be on a show that, you know, people were so excited about and sort of changed television history, that you could never in a million years see coming. And it was sort of a perfect storm, and just, if it was good before, it became great.
And did you think from the first season that it was going to be something special?
We knew it was special for us. We just didn't think that anyone would see it. We didn't know if it was ever going to make it on air. And season 1, I want to say that we finished filming almost the entire season before it aired. So we were just in a bubble. We were just being artistic and creating this world and creating these characters, and just, it felt like putting on a play. I mean, it really just felt like our own special, unique, artistic world that we were in. And it really wasn't until maybe the middle of season 3 that people would start to be like, hey, aren't you on that show? And I think, oh, they must think I'm Jessica Chastain. You know, but it was just like, it took a while. So we didn't, the long answer is no, we had no idea in season 1. It took us quite some time. And it wasn't until we started seeing sort of like references on Saturday Night Live or The Simpsons or something that we were like, oh, this is a big deal.
I mean, when you film something like that, would you watch back a whole episode? Like, in the sense of, have you ever seen an episode of Mad Men having...
Are you kidding me? It's my favorite show in the world.
Okay, good. Well, because sometimes you get people who've filmed things and they've never watched the movie that they've been in, or the TV show, or so you I've seen it, so you know how good it is.
I have a couple things in my career that I haven't watched, but I loved watching it. And you know, I was one of a very large ensemble cast. So there, even though I'd read every script, I didn't get to see them film those scenes. And I was a fan. So I would, you know, 3/4 of the show I wasn't in. So I'd just be sitting there like enjoying every second of it, being like, this is a good show. And then all of a sudden I'd pop up and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know. I've always found that I learn a lot from watching myself, that technically I'd go, oh, I thought I was doing that. I thought my face was doing that. I thought I was emoting that. It didn't necessarily come across. Good to know for the future. Like I do find that it's very helpful for me.
That's interesting. How long would a season of Mad Men take to film?
Well, I think we usually did 13 episodes, and we would take 8 days to shoot an episode plus weekends. So I think we'd be there 6-7 months or something, if the math kind of adds up that way.
So it was a big part of your life for, you know, what was it, 8 years, something like that, 9 years?
By the time we wrapped, it was 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, because we shot the pilot. Matt Weiner, our creator, was still on The Sopranos, and so he had to finish that up. We were waiting to see if we were going to get picked up. So we shot the pilot, and almost a year went by before we shot season 1.
I mean, yeah, that I always kind of forget that about the link between The Sopranos and Mad Men, because were you a fan of The Sopranos before?
Yeah.
I
mean, obviously too. I mean, the script was so good, but the pedigree of Matt coming from The Sopranos certainly helped the decision of like, we're about to do a show on a network that has no shows with a bunch of people no one's ever heard of, but he was on The Sopranos. I mean, it's a pretty big, you know, plus.
And do you think that it changed television? Well, you said you think it changed television, but do you think Mad Men was the show? I mean, probably The Sopranos a bit before paved the way for Mad Men as well, but like Mad Men probably was the show that like turned it into like TV being, I mean, TV's almost better than movies now. I don't know. At least
I think a lot of people feel that way. Certainly The Sopranos was doing it before us. I'd like to say we were one of several. We certainly can't take all the credit. There were, you know, a bunch of great shows, and then Breaking Bad shortly after we started also came onto AMC, and that was super exciting because they were doing something so incredible and amazing, but really different from us. But we were on the same network, so we sort of felt like this cool family. You know, we would all be at each other's premieres and supporting each other. And so it felt like there was something special going on. And not every show has premieres and get to go to award shows together and things like that. It was very like this special university for 10 years. You'd see the same people and you were excited for them and they were excited for you. And it was just like this very unique time. And then sort of that guard passes and the new guard comes in, and it's the next group of great shows, and then they get to celebrate together. And we just felt like we were contributing, and that is a really good feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it was the pop culture thing of, I don't know, like those few years. That was, and Breaking Bad as well.
That you could be really proud of, though, too. There was such depth and.
Oh yeah, pop culture is underselling it. It was an actual work of art. It was.
Yeah, I believe so.
Serious work of art.
I sound like such a goofball being such a fan of my own show. I really am proud of it. And, I am able to look at it from an outside perspective as well. Thank God, because I'm so glad I can enjoy it like a fan.
Was anyone on the show like, could take or leave this, to be honest?
The show sucks. No, we all knew how special it was. And it's interesting because, sometimes you come back season 3 or season 4 and you're like, I got this, or you get a little relaxed. And I don't think that we ever did that. It was, if anything, like pressure to top ourselves or make sure that we were consistent, or that we were, taking it just as seriously as we did in season 1. So every year we would show up on day 1 and kind of be sweating and be like, I'm nervous. Are you nervous? I'm super nervous, and wanting to impress our boss and wanting to impress each other. And I mean, that's how it should be. That's how you should always be trying that hard.
And in terms of how life changed after that, did you find yourself doing, I mean, I know you were in Drive, for example, right at the same time as Mad Men. What was that experience like?
Fantastic. I mean, that's the good thing about, like I said, 6-7 months. So then we've got that chunk of time to go do other things. And of course we were hot. So all these exciting directors were interested in meeting with us and working with us. And I had just seen Bronson, and I called my manager, Ben, and I said, what's Nicholas Winding Refn doing? And he goes, well, actually he's about to shoot something, but there's only 2 female roles and they've already cast Carey Mulligan. And I was like, what's the other one? And so I went and met with Nicholas, and he completely cracked me up. So weird. And he made it known very quickly that he'd never seen my show and didn't know who I was. And I complimented him a whole lot and told him how much I loved Bronson, and I won him over, and I got the gig. So it worked out, and it was an amazing experience. And that's another thing that, like, when people talk about it, they get excited. People really love that movie, and it was it's cool to be a part of it. Yeah,
absolutely. But something that you said just interested me, and you were saying because of Mad Men you were hot, and so therefore all these exciting offers were coming in. Does that side of the entertainment business ever get wearing or difficult? I mean, obviously since Mad Men, I guess you've always been in demand, so you've never, but does the idea of it ever get taxing? Because I guess show business entertainment can be so fickle. Do you know people who find that side of it difficult? And do you worry about that ever happening in the future?
Are you saying it's taxing, having to constantly reintroduce yourself and constantly pursue work? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
So it's never going to be like, being a partner at an advertising agency where you're going to be doing 9 to 5 or whatever. It's not a 9 to 5 gig. I mean, obviously that there are major upsides, but does that side of it, having to go for meetings all the time and try, that hustling aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. There's not sort of a hierarchy that you can like go, I've been in the business this many years, so that's why I have this position. I've been in this business, so that's why I'm the vice president. You're starting fresh every time, and you have to prove yourself nonstop. It's like having to audition to get into the next year of college every time, you're constantly trying to prove yourself from your last project, hoping someone saw it, hoping that they didn't just see you in Mad Men. Hopefully they like this too. It is a full-time trying to keep yourself in a position of, moving forward with staying true to yourself, with doing the kind of projects that you want, hoping that people can see you, and you like sort of trying to prove to someone that you can do something all the time. Even though you felt like you've proved yourself, it's like maybe that person didn't agree. So, and luckily I work with an amazing manager who's worked with me for years and years and years, and he knows my taste, and he knows the kind of stuff that I'd love and the kind of people that I want to work with. So he's constantly making phone calls and saying, okay, she's going to be on a break in 2 months. We've got this amount of time. What can we do? Does it work with your schedule? And it's all sort of a little bit about a puzzle and who's available at the same time. And yeah, it's nonstop. I wish I could just go, I'll do that one. Just doesn't work out.
Yeah, but you must relish it at the same time, though. What do you think is the reason why you love what you do? I mean, do you love what you do?
I do. I love
Just to clarify that before I ask that question.
I'm like, wait a minute.
You never said that you loved it.
I do love what I do. And sometimes it's torment. Philip Seymour Hoffman had some quote or something it's like, I don't want to misquote him, but it was something about, being an actor is like extraordinarily painful. And, sometimes someone just wants to call you at a lunch break or talk about business. And you're like, I don't think you understand. I've been sobbing for 9 hours and panicking that my child might die. And they're like, I know, but you're an actor. And you're like, but I have to feel that. I have to feel that way all day. And it's sometimes awful. And yet there's something so irresistibly satisfying when you feel like you've nailed it, that you've helped create a human experience that someone could relate to, or you've helped interpret something in a way that might move someone or make them laugh, or you're like, I did it. And it just feels like it's the most joyous, satisfying feeling I can imagine.
And what's been the hardest thing that you've ever been in from an acting perspective?
The hardest thing, there's different things that are hard for different reasons. I think just for like being at like a intensity level with physicality and stunts and getting roughed up and dirty and bruised and beat up and emotional would be a show I did called Hap and Leonard, which I loved, but I came out pretty tattered and worn down. It was emotionally excruciating, and it was in the dead of summer with bugs and mud and humidity, and it was intense. It was intense.
What was that? That was like a few years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where were you filming that?
We shot that in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it was a very violent show. So I had to do things where stunts where I was being thrown against counters, and I had to have a fake nail hammered through my hand, and I had to pretend that was happening. And there was a moment where there was supposed to be a shot through a van window, and they used candy glass to break, but they didn't test it. So it exploded in my face. So I had shards of candy glass and blood on my face, and I was running through fields, tripping and falling on the ground. Everyone thought I was a great actor. They didn't realize that I was actually tripping and falling on the ground. So it was hardcore. It was hardcore. But I'm very, very proud of my performance in it.
Well, I mean, there must be many things that you're very proud of. I've got to say, I mean, like, I don't want to be one of those people who's only seen Mad Men, because I have seen many other things that you've done, but it's a bit like, in my mind, like for TV shows, that's like being in the Beatles, that Breaking Bad, Sopranos. So it is
The best
It's got to be
compliment.
said. It's got to be said when it's true. But obviously, more recently, something that a lot of people love, and I haven't seen yet, I must confess. But my girlfriend loves it. Is Good Girls. Is that what you're working on at the moment?
Mhm. Yeah, we're finishing up season 4 filming, and in the US, it's aired the middle of season 4. I think in the rest of the world, we can be streamed, and you can see up through season 3.
And
And you will love it. I'm telling you, it's not just for ladies.
No, I'm sure. What is Good Girls about?
It's about 3 women, 2 sisters and a best friend, who are essentially just best friends and family. And they find themselves, they're Midwest mothers and wives, and they find themselves financially in predicaments that they just can't get themselves out of. And they decide if they just go rob a grocery store real fast, they can take all this cash, solve all the problems in their family, and they'll be done with it. And of course, it leads down to this very crazy, zany, ridiculous journey into petty crime and sisterhood and sexy gangsters. And it's funny and weird and has a really unique sense of humor, but is also heartfelt and dramatic. That's why I love it. Is it's really balances a tone of comedy and drama at the same time that I haven't seen a lot of other shows do that well. And our creator has just a really weird sense of humor, so it works.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard amazing things, and I'm looking forward to watching it. So, how many seasons do you reckon it will run for, or is that impossible to say?
That's impossible to say. This is the week where they're supposed to make decisions, so we're on pins and needles, hoping that they want to keep us. But and our fans are being very, very vocal on social media about trying to keep our show on the air. So we'll see. We'll see.
Well, fingers crossed. I'm sure it will be renewed. But in any case, it sounds like it's something that's got a lot of like critical acclaim,
Yeah.
regardless. So, in terms of your career going forward, and looking back, I mean, it's been. Would you say TV's been like your main thing, and movies have been secondary to that, or do you think that you want to be in movies as much as being on TV?
I enjoy them both for different reasons. I enjoy a film, you know, the full story, start to finish, you know, your character arc, you know, that you need to execute this very specific thing, and you can really sort of sculpt it and make a perfect package. What I love about television is getting to enrich a character because you've got time to do it, and sort of a little bit you learn as the audience learns the character, because you don't know what the next script is going to be. So you get clues about who you're playing week to week, and it sort of makes the character richer and more fun to watch, and the history between characters gets more interesting. So there's benefits to both, but I also am a creature of habit, and I do like having a film family that I've known for years. So there is something very appealing to going back the next year and seeing the people that I love. You know, when you do a film, it's this fast and furious relationship that you have with people, and then you say that you're going to see each other next month, and you may not for a couple of years. So films are like camp, and TV's like home for me.
Yeah, I can see that. And what you're saying about characters being more kind of 3D, the longer development definitely rings true. But what about as a viewer? Do you watch TV or movies more?
TV.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling like it's as a medium just kind of overtaken movies a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. So final question, as this is the greatest music of all time podcast, if you were to choose 3 artists to meet, or to, you know, let's say you could choose 3 artists who could perform give you a private concert in your house, who would they be?
Oh goodness. Okay. I'm gonna take Meat out, because Meat can either be disappointing or I'm gonna do private concert at my house. Richard Ashcroft, but I'd like him to bring the whole verve.
Yeah.
Simon and Garfunkel. Oh, just 3?
Only 3. Those are 2 very good choices there. A reunion, they're both still alive.
I mean, I feel like, yes, they are. I feel like, and I can't do Dead. I can't do, like, I can't say the Beatles. Like, I can't.
You can't
No. Okay, so this is
be brought
tricky,
back
but
to
I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna go big and say Arcade Fire.
Very good choices. I mean, Richard Ashcroft, I was quite surprised. I never hear Richard Ashcroft being mentioned, but he's
Still
got
here,
some-
Richard. I'm still here for you.
If you're enjoying the Greatest Music of All Time podcast, you can keep up to date with all of our latest episodes for free by subscribing. If you're watching on YouTube, the subscribe button is located at the top of the Tom Cridland YouTube page. It's also at the bottom right of any video that you watch on YouTube. If you're listening on an audio platform, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe at the top of the page.